In today's episode, we are going to talk about the deployment strategies for the microservices. But first, take a look at why the deployment strategies even matter. So let's say that we are deploying the hundreds of microservices. We cannot just deploy and hope nothing will happen. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we have a strategy. We have a strategy that for the to release safely, minimize downtime, and validate real-time traffic before we are doing the full rollout. So we have several strategies that we are going to take a look from the simplest one to the most complex, more advanced one. Let's first start with the first and the easiest one, with the recreate strategy. So what's the recreate strategy? Let's say we have 5 pods and the 5 instances of our microservices. So what we do is we are stopping all of the instances, and we then recreating, which means that we are deploying to each pod. We are deploying the new version of our application, right? New binary. So the pros of this approach is that it's easy to implement and no version overlap. The cons is that it requires a downtime and it's not suitable for the applications that require high availability. So what are the use cases? Use cases are the non-critical internal services, or let's say that we use that strategy to deploy to the dev or the staging environment. The second one is, and the most widely used strategy for the microservices is in production, is rolling deployment. So what is rolling deployment? In rolling deployment, let's say we have 5 microservices. We have 5 instances of our microservices, and so what we do is we are gradually replacing the old pods with the new ones. So for example, first we are replacing the first pod, then we are replacing the second pod, third, and so on. So we are gradually deploying that, not replacing all at once, right? So what's the pros of this approach? The pros is that there is a zero downtime and it's a smooth traffic shift. And the cons is that it's a slower rollout, and we may have also version mismatch, right? So for example, let's say that in this scenario, we have the 2 microservices running with the newer version, and we have the 2 instances, 2 pods running with the older version. So in this case, so what will happen is, let's say we don't have the backward compatibility, so we may have unexpected results. So we have to take that into account. And it's used rolling deployment. It's used for the most production microservices. The another approach, another strategy that we have is that the blue-green deployment. So what's the blue-green deployment, right? So in the blue-green deployment, we need to maintain 2 environments, and we are instantly switching. So for example, in this case, so what we do is, let's say our first version of our application is running in one environment, and then we are creating another environment with our let's say we have 4 pods, right? So our 4 pods are running in the second environment, and then what we do is we are instantly switching from the first environment to the second environment. So again, what's the pros of this approach? It's an instant rollback, zero downtime, and we can validate that in production. And the cons is, in this case, again, it's double infrastructure, so we need to maintain the double infrastructure temporarily. And what are the use cases where we're using that? We are using that for the mission critical services, for example, for payment, authentication, and so on. So another strategy that we have is the canary deployment. So what is the canary deployment? In canary deployment, so when we are using that, right? So we are using that if we want to detect if we want to detect the issue on the early stages in the production. So we are using that for the canary. We are using for that approach. We are using the canary deployment strategy. So for the canary, we have the so for example, right, in this case, let's say what we do is we are again running 2 instances of our application, old version and the new version. And what we do is we are routing the traffic, 5% of our traffic to the new instance, and the 95% we are at 95% of our traffic we are routing to our old instance. And gradually we are increasing for example, we are increasing from 50 then to from 5 to 10 and the 50, and finally we are replacing the new version with the older version. So it's a progressive traffic shift. So when we are using that, we are using that for the user-facing APIs, for the UI services, for the feature validation. And what are the cons of this approach, right? The cons is that it needs smart routing. So we are using that usually that Istio or the Argo rollouts. And we have also one more strategy that we are using. It's very similar to the canary. It's a and B deployment. So for the A and B deployment, so what we have is we are using that usually when we are testing a product, or for the UI experiments, or for the, let's say, machine learning personalization. So what we do is we run two versions simultaneously, and we are serving two different user segments. So let's say that the first users, we are routing that to the traffic to the first to the first version, and another segment of the user, another, let's say that we have 100,000 users, and 50,000 of them we will route to the first version of our application, and the 50,000 to another version of the application, and then we will compare the results. Okay, which technologies, which tooling are we using for the deployment strategies, right? So, for example, for the Kubernetes, let's start with the Kubernetes. Kubernetes have all the tools in place for the rolling, for the blue-green, and for the canary deployment. Also, if we want to do advanced routing, we are, for example, for the canary and the AB, we are using the Argo rollouts. For the weighted traffic routing, we are on the service mesh level, we are using the Istio. So for the multi-strategy orchestration, we are using Harness, and for the feature flags, we are using the Unleash and the similar tools. So to recap what we have learned today, right? If we are just simply recreating our application, this is usually for the dev and the staging environment. We are using the recreate, so it's a simple but it has a downtime. But the most widely used for the microservices in production is rolling deployment. It's a gradual and the safe. And for the blue-green deployment, what's a blue-green deployment is that we have two parallel environments that we are running at the same time. It's an instant rollback, but the downside is that we need to maintain the two environments at the same time. So for the canary, it's a progressive traffic shift. So we are progressively increasing our traffic to catch any issue at the early stage. And for the AB, it's experiment-driven deployment, so which means that we are experimenting. We see that okay, let's say that how it behaves with we are splitting the traffic, and we are comparing the result from the first and the second traffic. But usually, what we do in production is we are combining. We are not using, let's say that just a rolling strategy, or we are using blue-green. So what we do is we are usually come up with our own custom version to roll out our microservices.